Well, thank you all for joining us this morning, and hope you've had a chance to get a cup of coffee and kind of settle in for today's presentation. So good morning. As Dan said earlier, my name is Natalie Kramer, and I am the Vice President of Brand and Channel Management at VA Worldwide, and I will also be your host and moderator for today's session. So before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple housekeeping items just very quickly to help us all get the most out of today's session. So first, I do want to let you know that today's session is being recorded, and we will send out a playback link after the session is finished. And you can also view the session at your convenience from the VA Worldwide YouTube channel. Secondly, if I can just ask everyone to make sure that their microphones are muted during the presentation, that will just hopefully help with everybody's audio quality. And then lastly, we will have time for questions at the end of the session. So if you're going through the presentation, you think of a question, we want to make sure you don't forget it. You are able to enter that question into the chat feature, and we will cover that at the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. So data is growing at an exponential rate. It's estimated that by the end of this year, every human being on the planet will contribute 1.7 megabytes of data per second. And that adds up to an accumulated world total of 44 trillion gigabytes of data per year. So when you look at that vast amount of data and information that's available, do you ever struggle to know where to begin or what to do with that data to really turn it into actionable intelligence? So at VA, our mission is really simple. It's to empower our clients with best-of-breed solutions to gain insight from disparate data. And so today we're really excited to have the opportunity to introduce you to one of our partner solutions, Rosoka Text Analytics. And so Rosoka is a powerful, cost-effective, multilingual relationship and entity extraction tool that seamlessly integrates with Analyst Notebook and really delivers those value-add capabilities that are going to accelerate you into the next generation of IBM i2 performance. So we're going to go through what is Rosoka, give you a little bit of background and information, and then Dan's going to take you through a couple demos of some localized use cases. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, we will have time at the end for some questions. So make sure that you're following along. Again, feel free to enter your questions into the chat at any point in time during the session. So I want to go ahead and introduce Dave Ashton again. Dave is our Australia, New Zealand Regional Manager for VA, and Dave's going to share with you a little bit more about Rosoka before Dan gets into the demo. So Dave, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Thanks, Natalie. Well, I think one of the things that we do as a company is we work on the problem-solving concept. Obviously, we're a commercial organization. We support clients in products, and primary tools, of course, as you know, are the IBM i2 suite of tools. But very often when we deal with clients, and they can be as small as a single PI, private investigator, right up to defense, policing, government agencies, and yourselves. One of the issues that often people come across is that the structured data ingestion process is very much covered. It can be done in many ways, even as simple as using Excel. But when we're extracting large volumes of documents, and like Natalie alluded to, the exponential growth of data, as we all know, this has been exponential for years. But to comprehend the level that sometimes we have to deal with, we have to use tools to enable us to continue our investigations. And one of the partners that we have, Rosoka, has brought a very, very powerful set of tools integrated into i2. And for those that have been familiar with i2 over the years, Analyst Notebook is probably in over 140 countries now. Everyone uses it. So it makes sense to have capabilities enhancing that. And some of you may be familiar with our own tool, the AIC plugin. So with Rosoka, this is another avenue to deal with large volumes of data and do it automatically. And if you haven't seen this yet in any way, shape, or form, I'm really excited to see Dan's presentation as well, because it's a very, very smart tool that can enhance and accelerate that investigative process. So I'll leave Dan for the bulk of this presentation. I'll finish here. But please bear in mind, that Natalie will be moderating this presentation. There will be a Q&A at the end, and obviously most of you, in fact you all know Dan, and we can do any follow-ups after this as well, of course, and it is being recorded, so I won't use any of my jokes that are being recorded because they're never good at the best of times. But please enjoy the presentation. We look forward to any questions and answers at the end of this session, and of course we'll follow up as a team afterwards should you need to have any deeper conversations. Thanks, Natalie.
So Dan, we'll let you take over screen sharing.
Okay, can everyone see my Analyst Notebook screen? Should be a familiar sight for all of you.
Yeah.
Yep, looks good.
Yep. Okay. So this is Analyst Notebook. As Dave mentioned, Rosoka isn't just a product that works with Analyst Notebook. It's an actual Analyst Notebook plugin. It's designed for that particular purpose. So it appears, once it's installed, it appears up here on the on your toolbar under Text Analytics. And Rosoka works with collections. So if you have unstructured data, and we're talking, it could be anything from text files, PDFs, Word documents. There's a ton of different kind of documents that it actually works with and understands. I've just created a demo folder here on the right-hand side. Rosoka also will have its own palette, its own entity palette, and these are the kind of entities straight out of the box that it understands, it recognizes, and will extract for you. So in my demo folder, I've just got the one text file for the moment. What Rosoka has done is analyze the words in the text document, or the strings, if you like. They're referred to as tokens. A token is a term that a lot of text analytics use in terms of lexicons, and it recognizes that these two things are a first name and a surname and will form an entity of a person. It also recognizes that this is an organization entity. And to get into the weeds a little bit, I can click on the Dan Harris, and you can see over here how it's identified it. So it's identified it as a male. It's identified that the given name is Dan, the surname is Harris, and then it normalizes that into Dan Harris. And with the VA Worldwide, it recognizes that VA Worldwide is an organization. You can see the entity type comes up here. It also identifies the links as well. So what Rosoka does is when it looks at all the tokens, it tries to identify the entities that those tokens make up, whether it's first name, surname, whether it's a place, whether it's a date, whether it's a number or a dollar amount, and identifies these based on the dictionary. And then straight out of the box, the dictionary is extensive, but you can through Rosoka Studio create your own dictionary. So if you are in an industry that has quite bespoke terms, you can create your own dictionary around, for instance, slang terms for drugs or for weapons or for anything that's bespoke to perhaps vehicles or documentation or identification. You can create your own dictionaries as well. So this is just the first document that was in that. I can go back to over on the right hand side. If I go back to the folder itself, I can add some more files, and I've got a few more files I'm going to just add to this folder, and you'll see they'll all appear here, and they haven't been processed yet. So I can click on process collection, and it doesn't take that long to start processing it. And again, what it's doing is it's reading these files, identifying all the tokens or all the words, trying to see where the entities and the links lie within those. So here's the second one. It's recognized that Dave Ashton is a person. It's recognized that VA Worldwide is an organization. The next document, it's recognized that, again, that's a person, and Melbourne is indeed a place, even to the point where it knows that you can see where it's underneath where I'm hovering, place Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. The next one, it recognized that New Zealand is a place. And then the last one, oops. Again, it's recognized that Canberra is a place. That's just looking at individually at each individual document. But up the top here on the right-hand side, I can click on entities and get a list of all the different entities that it's identified. And indeed, on the links tab, I can see all the different links as well. So if I wanted to, I could right-click on the Dan Harris and send that to the chart. And here's one I prepared earlier. So Dan Harris goes to the chart. If I wanted to, I could right-click and say show in document. So where exactly was Dan Harris mentioned? And it brings up the Rosoka document view window where I can see where Dan Harris was mentioned in both of those documents. I can also right-click and expand, and I get a choice of what I want to expand. So it looks at the folder structure, and it says, well, there were organizations, persons, and places. Which do you specifically want to expand to? Similarly to if you've got a chart that's attached to iBase, and you can actually dip back into iBase and pull more data out. I'm just going to say select all and expand, and so it's going to reach back in again. And I'm just going to just select all and reach back one more time. And there's my chart with all the entities that it's extracted from those 5 documents. It's pretty simple and pretty clever. And that's just straight out of the box. So what I want to do is I want to show you a different example that's a more of a real use case. So I'm just going to select everything and just delete that from Analyst Notebook chart. Step back to my original collections page, and I'm going to create a new collection. And this one I'm going to call Coronavirus. We shouldn't talk about the war, but create. And I've actually got a folder on my desktop, which I'm going to use. Okay. And what I've got in this collection, I've just pulled a bunch of articles. I'm just going to remove that one, and remove that one. I've got a bunch of articles that I've taken off the internet. There's a couple text documents. There's a Word document. There was another one I think was a HTML. I'm just going to process the first one just so you can see what we're working with. And this is around the girls that were recently caught entering Queensland who had flown from Melbourne via Sydney. So again, straight out of the box, it's identified that Diana Lissa is a person and Olivia Maranga is a person. It's even identified that coronavirus is a disease entity. If you look over here on the right-hand side in the palette, there is a disease entity. So coronavirus was obviously in the dictionary. In fact, COVID-19 was as well. Even the mention of Virgin Australia flight VA977, it's identified as a conveyance, which is Rosoka's terminology for vehicles. And also these 21-year-old, 19-year-old, these are what Rosoka refers to as measures. And if I was to click on Diana Lissa here, you can see that it doesn't just highlight the one I click on, but it highlights both. So every mention of that entity within this document. On the right-hand side, it's identified that the given name is Diana, the surname is Lasso or Lasso, gender is female, and down here you can see with the links, there's a person to measure, which is the Diana Lasso, is linked to 21 years old. So if we were to chart that, it would identify her as being 21 years old, Olivia Maranga being 19 years old. I'm going to just process the entire collection. And while I do that, we'll have a look at a few other things. So with the places are all in the dictionary as well. So not only does it identify that the country that is associated with Melbourne is Australia, but it has latitudes and longitudes as well. So if you're using geospatial applications with Analyst Notebook, you can then chart those things to one of those applications as well. And quick as you like, the rest of them have all been processed as well. I'm going to select another one just to show you. Okay, here's an example of, again, there's Olivia Winnie Maranga Timbo. So you'll see here it's identified a female, Haja Timbo. Then on the next line, it just says Timbo, which is this common way that people would write. But Rosoka actually identifies this Timbo as being the same Timbo that was mentioned in the previous line. There's also another clever thing that Rosoka does, which is, there you go, which refers to as anaphors. And anaphor is usually pronouns that refer back to a name. So the she here, it identifies the she as referring to Olivia Maranga, who was mentioned in the previous line. So if it was something like Dave Ashton works at at VA Worldwide. He also lives in New Zealand. The he, Rosoka knows the he refers to the entity, person, Dave Ashton, that was mentioned in the previous sentence. To look at all of this collection as a whole, I can go to my entities and see every entity that's been identified within the documents. So if I was to pop open place, here's all the various places. Like I mentioned before, the disease. Let's say I wanted to have a look at the COVID-19. I can send that to my chart. So there's COVID-19 on my chart. If I want to use Rosoka to expand that to any persons that are associated to the COVID-19 link, I can expand. And from all my documents, I've got here's my Diana, here's Stephen Miles, Haja Timbo, Olivia, Ada. So if I get this and I go, well, I'm not actually sure who Ada is. I certainly wasn't someone that I was intending on investigating. I can right click on the Ada entity and go down to show in documents, and it will go into the collection and show me where it retrieved the word Ada from, or the entity Ada. And I can see here that it's brought up the ABC News document, and that Ada is actually Miss Lesour's mother. So that's how she got into, where her entity came from. Another name that was strange to me is Stephen Miles. So if I wasn't sure why, I knew there was 3 girls allegedly involved, but I don't know where the Stephen Miles has come from. Again, I can right click, go show in documents. Where did Steve Miles come from? Health Minister Steve Miles, and that's why he was involved in this article speaking about the closure of Parklands Christian College. So it's super efficient. It's incredibly quick, straight out of the box. There are you do have the ability though to and I've just spotted an example here, to create your own dictionaries or to help Rosoka learn as you go. Like I said, if you have bespoke terminology or things that you identify that Rosoka has missed, you have the ability to help it learn. So, for instance, I can see here that there's a reference of a Logan here, which Logan is a city or a place. So by highlighting, Logan, and selecting, beg your pardon, if I select tag, I can highlight, and I've lost it now. Where was Logan? Here. If I tag entity, I'm brought up with this. I've got this window here where I can say that, okay, here's what it looks like. Normalizing always has lowercase. I'm just going to leave the glossary, but I'm going to set Logan to be a place. So again, these are all the entities that are available out of the box. I can say, okay, it's a place. If I wanted to, I could put in, well, I'll put in Australia as a country because I want it to know that. If I had the lets and longs, I could put that in as well. But I'm also going to select in here learn. So in future, whenever it comes across the Logan, it's going to know that Logan is a place. Do you want Rosoka to learn this entity? Yes, I do. So what it's doing now is it's assigning that to like a user-based dictionary. It's also going to reprocess that document, and it will pop up with Logan as a place now. So like I said, if you started with the COVID-19 entity and you were actually looking at a couple of different people, you can select multiple people just like you can in Analyst. Oh, there you go. Now it's done. And you can see Logan here now. If I hover over it, oh, it's identified as a place. It's automatically decided it's in ZW, Zimbabwe. Okay, so I can actually go into that and force that to be a suburb of Brisbane or Australia if I wanted to as well. I can select multiple entities, so Diana, Olivia, and again, expand. I'll just select all. Well, here we go. I'm just impatient. So now we've got a really good snapshot of everything that's mentioned in those documents. And this chart can be saved. Your collection is there, has been saved as well. If you wanted to go and investigate, or if you get more data, if you get, let's say, you get some incident reports, or you get some field reports from officers, you can add those to the collection. You can reprocess the collection, and again, expand and expand. Any of these entities can be customized. So if you have your own palettes, your own iconology that you use within your organization, you can, of course, change the palette to suit things that already exist. But basically, what a Rosoka is the best at is not only identifying the entities within the unstructured data, but explaining to you where those entities came from. So it's not just ripping everything straight out of documents and throwing them on a chart. You have the ability to then go to the chart and go, well, how did you establish this person? How did you establish why is Princess Alexandra Hospital here? What's the relevance to this investigation? I can always right-click, go back to where that entity is mentioned in the documents, and you'll see here it's actually mentioned in 3 different documents. So you get the context of the entities, not just throw them onto a chart and go print. Here we go. You've got that the connectivity and the relationship between the documents and the entities that are relevant to your investigation. And like I said, Rosoka understands a multitude of different document types. It also understands a multitude of languages, around 200 languages. So if you were investigating an international or an overseas investigation, you can take documents in other languages, and Rosoka does understand them. It doesn't translate them. What it does is it breaks them down into the tokens and will actually translate each token. It won't translate them in terms of a sentence structure and things like that, because what it's essentially looking for, it's looking for those entities. That pretty much sums up Rosoka. It's a super powerful tool. It's ridiculously affordable as well. But like I said, it's not a product that works with Analyst Notebook. It is an Analyst Notebook plugin. It's designed to work with Analyst Notebook, and ultimately it's designed to expedite your investigations when it comes to unstructured data. Thanks, Nat.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Dan. And as you mentioned, it really is truly a seamless integration with Analyst Notebook. And as you also mentioned, when you do have an instance where there's unique terminology to your agency or the way that you conduct investigations, there is another tool that we can show at a later date called Rosoka Studio that's really kind of that back engine to help fine tune how Rosoka processes the unstructured text and documents, where you can, add new language packs to that fairly easily. You can, change the way that entities are identified as well. So that's another conversation we can have. But I know we've already got one question in the chat. So we've got one that says, how does it deal with entity conflicts? Example, Logan could be a place or a name.
Yeah.
That to you.
Yeah, there is a way within the actual so within the Rosoka plugin, you can create your own mapping and teach it to identify some of the other key indicators, and it will look for identifiers within the other tokens around it to determine, okay, I know it's a place or a name, so what am I looking for? Particularly if there's something like a surname afterwards, then it would, if there was another, let's say it was a capitalized word that it recognizes as a surname, then it would say that Logan is a first name, a Christian name. Or if it was a country or another abbreviation, say a postcode that was near that entity, it would identify Logan as a place or as a location. So you can do that within the plugin, but any changes or any learning that you do within the plugin stays within that plugin. So it's almost like it's your own personal dictionary. If you want to do a create and teach Rosoka those new terminology for the greater organization or other users, then you need to do that within the dictionary, within the Rosoka Studio itself, which everyone can benefit from. It creates what's referred to as an LX-based file, which is essentially your organization's dictionary. And then everyone uses that dictionary for all of their plugins. So where I did the Logan before, and set it to create an entity out of it. That works on my workstation now. So anytime I get Logan, it's going to know that it's an entity. But if I want to share that with everyone because it's just a house style or it's something that we all use because it's part of our industry, then we would use Rosoka Studio for that, and everyone benefits from it.
And Dan, did you mention that? Did you mention how many languages out of the box?
Yeah, it's around 200 languages. Yeah, and that's growing. That's growing every day as well. They're currently working on some other languages. I think Maori is one of them, Dave, that we've actually asked them to work on?
Yeah, based in New Zealand, we're working with some law enforcement and corrections, and they have a particular need to have Pacific Island language and Maori. So we're working with them on developing that lexicon, and particularly challenging for Maori because of the way the language is formed. But also, interestingly, there's a translation automatically built into the situation, so into the software. So another example where we've done a demonstration is we use some Russian Wikipedia pages, and when you hover over a particular name in Russian, it translates it into in default to English. So you can automatically scan a foreign document. And then it automatically translates it as well. So you can use multiple languages in the same charting tool as well, if that's of interest as well. So it's a very powerful out-of-the-box tool. But I think the powerful thing from the learning, and to come back to that question about how it understands the differences between Logan, for example, the confliction, then there is the self-learning tool. Like Dan highlighted, so the Studio tool itself is a very powerful addition to the tool sets that come out of the box.
Great. So we've got another question in the chat, kind of along the same lines as just the language multilingual recognition, and so that is, how does it manage non-European names? Example, using Indian or Chinese names that are in a document.
So I think, Dan, I don't know if you, that sort of goes back to what I've just been saying, that it understands languages out of the box. So you can have multiple documents in your document store with different languages, and then it will process them all, and you can do the translation, and it will understand, say, 200 languages out of the box. And again, you can evolve the lexicons as well. Dan, did you want to add to that?
Well, I don't have anything set up for that, but I'm happy to do further demonstrations of Chinese or Spanish or German or whatever languages people like, just to demonstrate how it works. At a later date, I'm happy to throw something together and showcase that, because it's incredible the way it does it. So yeah.
And again, a multilingual document where it's maybe English, but then has Mandarin characters. In it for a Chinese name as well, that it does pick up those, and you can hover it over it while it doesn't translate it in the document. You can hover over the name to show the entity type that has been identified.
Yep.
And again, for those that are not familiar with Analyst Notebook particularly well, Analyst Notebook itself can handle multiple languages in the charts at the same time. So it's a complementary capability with Rosoka and i2.
Another question that's come into the chat is just with regards to the types of files that it can process. So how does it work with a PDF file type?
Yeah, it works with PDFs. So most of your the most common documents that you would have, it does do that. The only thing it doesn't have a OCR element, so it won't take like scanned handwritten messages or things like that. But certainly PDFs it works with.
Okay, so we've got another question that says, I'm interested in seeing it fuse or merge entities from or, for example, media articles with entities in a connected database, for example, iBase. So if you've got, entities coming from something that you're using the AIC plugin, and you've got, something that you've downloaded from the internet, an article, news article, and that contact or that entity is also part of your iBase database. Is there a way to kind of fuse those records together, what you're getting from open source structured to your actual database?
Yeah, there is a way. I mean, if I had iBase connected to this chart as well, and I had certain entities, I would be able to reach back. I haven't set it up for this. In fact, Dave, have you experimented with iBase?
So no, it's a good question actually.
Yeah.
But the general concept of I2, the charting, as you probably know, is that you can only have one particular type of entity on there. So if there was a situation where there was a slight misspelling, so you had different source for the same person, then you can run the smart matching tool and various other techniques if you wanted to identify similar persons. And if you were then confirming that they are the same, they've just been spelt differently, or once you've done your analytical review, then you can obviously merge the records from different sources. So again, the chart having it integrated into i2 particularly allows you to pull information from iBase or from Rosoka or from using the AIC plugin. But the general concept of i2 is that you can only have one of the same thing on the chart at any one time.
Okay, and then another question we have, I think we've already addressed this, is just that Rosoka is a seamless integration with Analyst Notebook, but they're wondering if there can be just a direct connection to iBase. So kind of what we talked about, it's leveraging, it's a plugin built for Analyst Notebook, but you can certainly leverage your iBase database install as well.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, even just within this chart here, if I recognize that there was two things that were the same, I can start merging them. I can use all the functionality that Analyst Notebook provides. So if I had quite a large sort of peacock or chart of associations, I could use the find shortest path. I could use some of the analytical tools within the Analyst Notebook toolbars as well. To merge and combine certain entities, or do a visual search for certain things and highlight. You could even use some of your existing like conditional formatting to affect the chart as well.
And also you can, once you've got information on the chart itself and you connect it to iBase, then you can save back to iBase and create those records from the chart as well. So often when you're manually updating a chart and then you want to connect and update iBase, you can save back to your chart items back to iBase.
Okay, so we've got another question that just popped up. Does it capture the source of the data for provenance? So let Dan or Dave, either of you, answer that.
While you're using the plugin, while you've got Rosoka, you can go backwards and forwards and find where what document the references come to. In terms of the entities itself, it doesn't, though. It uses its own code to assign the entities. So, for instance, with Steve Goldshewski here, it doesn't actually reference the document itself where it's come from. It uses its own identifier so that I can use the Rosoka tool to find the documents that it came from. But the document names or the shared location, for instance, where the document is stored in the collection, that doesn't come across. It contains its own code, so it's connected to the collection.
Okay, we've got another question that just came in. Are you able to tell it to ignore, for example, ignore a journalist name in an article, just so it doesn't, muddy up your chart of who you're actually looking at as a person of interest?
Yes, you can certainly hard code certain things to ignore, so not to entity-tize them, if you like, through your own personal dictionaries or through your own personal scripting. So, for instance, if you've got field officers that are always handing in incident reports, for instance, and you don't want their name to pop up every single time because you're more interested in the context of the incident report, you can create a dictionary to say, right, just avoid these names from cluttering up the chart, and then you just load that dictionary into your Rosoka before you run the collection, before you process the collection, and it will have just the pure data you're interested in without anything else that's from those documents.
Okay. I know we've gone over our time here today and we started a little bit late. I think we're starting to see questions slow down in the chat, but Dan, Dave, any final comments from you before I close this out here?
No, I was just going to say thanks everyone for attending today, and we're happy to do more of these demonstrations. As soon as lockdown changes here in Melbourne, I can always come out and see you guys and provide some more bespoke demonstrations around your particular industry or your particular use cases. But yeah, we're really rapt to have Rosoka on board. I think this is such a powerful tool. It's going to save everyone heaps of time.
Yeah, and I'd also like to refer back to Rosoka. They're a US-based company, but they've been exceptionally receptive to us as a partner to assist us in, like, for example, we talked about the Maori language. They've got some very, very smart linguistic teams within the company. And so they've been very, very supportive in helping us to try to develop localized questions that we've got. So any questions you do have, then feed them back through Dan, and we'll probably get the answers pretty much overnight, because they've been very receptive and a good company for us to partner with and work with.
Yeah. All right. So I just, again, want to, on behalf of VA Worldwide, just thank you guys for sacrificing part of your morning with us. We hope you learned something new. Again, if there's any questions that come up, I know that was a lot of information covered in a very short amount of time. So feel free to reach out to Dan directly with any follow-up questions you have. This presentation was recorded, so we will send you an email with the playback link, and it will also be available on our YouTube channel. If there's any of your colleagues who maybe had intended to join today's session and weren't able to make it, feel free to share that link with them once it's available. And again, any questions you have, feel free to reach out to Dan or info@vaworldwide.com, and we'll make sure to get those out to you. But on behalf of all of us at VA Worldwide, I just want to say thank you, and stay safe, stay healthy, and be well. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.